Hello everyone! If you enjoy these rare World War II chronicles, hit that subscribe button and leave a comment below telling us what city or country are you watching from. Let's get started.
By the start of July 1941, the situation on the Western strategic direction was dire. The primary armies of the Red Army's first strategic echelon had been encircled and crushed in the Białystok and Minsk pockets. The mobile forces of Army Group Center reached the western Dnieper River near Vitebsk and the Dnieper River near Orsha and Mogilev. Within Hitler's staff, or Stavka, the plan for the next phase of the campaign, a swift thrust toward Moscow, was being finalized. The Wehrmacht General Staff intended the main strike to continue, as before, along the Moscow axis. This new offensive aimed to use Army Group Center to slice through the Soviet defenses, encircle and destroy the Soviet groupings near Nevel, Smolensk, and Mogilev, thereby creating optimal conditions for the final advance on the capital.
To crush the Western Front, which was now led by Defense Commissar Marshal Timoshenko, replacing the dismissed General Pavlov, Army Group Center deployed over 900 tanks, more than 6,000 artillery pieces and mortars, and over 1,000 combat aircraft. Intelligence data and the initial German successes fueled the German command's confidence that the Western Front lacked the reserves necessary to offer serious resistance on the path to Moscow. Nevertheless, new armies were rapidly being brought forward from the Soviet deep rear to replace the shattered formations. By the start of the Smolensk battle, which began on July 10, the Western Front comprised 7 armies, with 5 in the first echelon. The 4th and 16th Armies formed the second echelon.
On July 10, 1941, the Western Front's positions were hit by the powerful thrusts of 2 tank wedges from Army Group Center. General Hermann Hoth's 3rd Panzer Group struck at the right flank of the Soviet forces. Meanwhile, General Heinz Guderian's 2nd Panzer Group advanced on the left flank, swiftly forcing a crossing of the Dnieper, both south and north of Mogilev, meeting little resistance initially. The most vulnerable point in the Soviet defense proved to be the boundary between the 20th and 22nd Armies. On July 9th, Soviet units had abandoned Vitebsk, posing the critical threat of Hoth's 3rd Panzer Group breaking into the rear of the entire Western Front. To prevent this, Timoshenko decided on a combined arms counterattack, utilizing 3 armies and air support, aiming to retake Vitebsk and solidify the defense along the Dnieper River. However, the hastily prepared counterattack failed. General Philipp A. Yershakov's 22nd Army, fighting near Polotsk, was split in 2 and could not launch an offensive. Defending a 280-kilometer-wide sector with just 6 divisions, it was outflanked, threatened with encirclement, and forced to retreat. General Ivan S. Konev's 19th Army, which had not fully concentrated, was unable to withstand the enemy's pressure and fell back to Smolensk. There, along with General Mikhail F. Lukin's 16th Army and General Pavel A. Kurochkin's 20th Army, it faced fighting in near-total encirclement. Hoth's 3rd Panzer Group capitalized on this, advancing north of Smolensk and reaching Yartsevo virtually unopposed by July 15. It secured the crucial Smolensk-Moscow highway and deeply outflanked the 16th and 19th Armies from the east. The situation developed differently on the southern flank. General Fyodor I. Kuznetsov's 21st Army launched an offensive toward Bobroysk on July 13th, driving the Germans out of Rogachev and Zhlobin. This strike was a complete surprise for the German command. Threatened on Guderian's right wing, Field Marshal Fyodor von Bock, commander of Army Group Center, was forced to commit the reserve 43rd Army Corps. Meanwhile, the situation at Smolensk deteriorated catastrophically. The 39th Motorized Corps fought its way to Rudnya and Demidov. The 47th Motorized Corps surged toward Smolensk via Krasny. Simultaneously, General Hans von Vietinghoff's 46th Motorized Corps encircled the city from the south. By the 5th day of the offensive, the enemy was at the gates of Smolensk.
On July 14th, Timoshenko ordered General Mikhail F. Lukin to organize the city's defense. However, the garrison's strength was only 6,000 men, mostly composed of militia, NKVD, and rare echelon units. On July 15th, the 7th Motorized Division from Guderian's group broke into Smolensk from the south, and by July 16th, the city was largely abandoned. On July 19th, Stalin issued an order severely criticizing the Western Front Command for its failure to organize a proper defense, and relieved Timoshenko of his command of the front, appointing Lieutenant General Andrei Yeremenko in his place. As a result of the deep penetration by the German Panzer Groups, 3 Soviet armies, 16th, 19th, and 20th, were trapped in the Smolensk area. Furthermore, Yelnya, Velikie Luki, and Yartsevo were lost. Near Mogilev, 6 rifle divisions of General Pyotr M. Filatov's 13th Army, not Remesov, were also surrounded.
Recognizing the crisis, the Stavka focused all efforts on halting the German advance, deploying 6 fresh all-arms armies into the Western Front's rear. Under Yeremenko, 5 Soviet operational groups launched concentrated counterattacks towards Smolensk, aiming to push the Germans back behind Orsha. On July 21, Soviet forces managed to retake Velikie Luki and prevent the encirclement of forces near Nevel. Parts of the encircled 22nd Army also managed to break out. However, Yeremenko's large-scale offensive operations were ultimately unsuccessful, hampered by dense German defenses, concentrated anti-tank artillery, and absolute enemy air superiority. Mogilev fell on July 26th after fierce fighting.
The final decision to abandon Smolensk was made on July 28th. Though the surrounded Soviet troops fought with minimal resupply, they managed to prevent their complete annihilation. Notably, elements of the 16th and 20th Armies successfully established defensive positions on the opposite bank of the Dnieper. By the end of July, neither side had fully achieved its strategic goals. On July 30, Hitler ordered the exhausted Army Group Center to transition to a defensive posture. German motorized and tank divisions, having suffered heavy casualties around Smolensk, were in desperate need of replenishment.
Concerned by the slow progress of Army Groups South and North, tasked with capturing Kiev and Leningrad, Hitler made the fateful decision to divert Guderian's 2nd Panzer Group south to reinforce Kleist's 1st Panzer Group in Ukraine, and Hoth's 3rd Panzer Group north to reinforce Army Group North. This move effectively suspended the main thrust toward Moscow. The battle, however, was not over. Unable to break Soviet resistance centrally, the Germans struck the flanks, August 3rd towards Roslav-Gomel and August 25th towards Velikie Luki. The Red Army continued to launch unsuccessful offensives. On September 1st, 18 Soviet divisions from 4 armies of the Western Front attempted to breach the German defenses toward Smolensk, but advanced only a few kilometers. These costly, unsuccessful efforts continued until September 10th, when the Stavka finally issued a directive to switch to the defensive. The only notable success was achieved by General Konstantin I. Rakutin's 24th Army of the Reserve Front against the Elnya salient. It succeeded in liberating Elnya on September 6th, forcing a retreat of the German XX Army Corps. With this action, the Smolensk battle as a strategic operation concluded. At the cost of immense losses, over 700,000 personnel with 480,000 irreparable, 1,348 tanks, 9,300 artillery pieces or mortars, and 903 aircraft, the Red Army had delayed the German advance on Moscow for nearly 3 months.
German losses exceeded 100,000 men. General Franz Helder, chief of the Army General Staff, noted that Russia, which we considered a colossus with feet of clay, has unexpectedly proved to be a strong opponent. It forced the previously victorious Wehrmacht to switch to strategic defense. The failure to achieve a quick victory at Smolensk also influenced Japan, leading Tokyo to abandon its plan to attack the Soviet Union on September 6, 1941. Conversely, the heavy casualties sustained by the Red Army significantly depleted its combat readiness, which negatively impacted subsequent operations and contributed to the devastating defeats near Vyazma and Bryansk in the autumn of 1941.